What's up, South by Southwest? I am Bryony Cole. I am the host and creator of Future of Sex podcast, and I'm the founder of SexTech School. Today, we're going to be sharing some virtual intimacy here, which is perfect because we're going to be discussing the thrilling potential of sex tech. And I'm going to linger a bit longer on that word sex tech because I want to think about the associations that come up when I say the word sex tech. Now, for some people, it's this, robots. For others, they're thinking about sexting their partners and how that's sex tech. But for the majority of people, I would say sex tech conjures images of sex robots like this one we're looking at now, Harmony AI. So Harmony has 10 different personality types from funny, shy, charming, and cute. And what we don't think about when we have these examples, which are sex tech, by the way, you're not wrong. They are a part of sex tech, and I also consider them, something that comes to mind when I think of sex tech. But the association with them that they're just going to fulfill the sex side of sex tech, when in fact these dolls and robots can often provide a lot more value in ways that we don't think about for trauma survivors or people that have difficulty relating to humans. And that is a means of reconnection and companionship. We see this very easily in examples like Gatebox, a hologram virtual assistant that, while she's designed to turn off the lights or control the lights and temperature in your home, she also sends emotional text messages and has this marketing around being a social companion technology. While these examples, I admit, when I share these, they're sort of the far out ones, right? And I think they're not as accessible, perhaps something a bit more recent and out of the pandemic and the isolation and loneliness, craving for intimacy, the skin hunger that's emerged is this robotic hand, right? So this is really about recreating that sense of holding hands with someone, and was designed a couple of months ago in Japan out of Gifu University. The hand grips, it warms, and gosh, does it raise questions about the quality of intimacy without humanity and where the future is going. And these are the same questions. Let's not forget that when it comes to our smartphones, essentially the robots in our pocket, that we should be thinking about. Can we get the quality of intimacy we desire from texting, or does it strip us of our humanity? Now, on first introduction to this wonderful world of sex tech, I think what tends to happen to people as it brings up some strong feelings is either we're going towards complete dystopia, or depending on your attitudes towards technology, your sexual values, the culture and society you grew up in, you might think, wow, this is headed towards some sort of utopia. Now, progress in technology always evokes these sorts of polarizing hopes and fears in society. And I think a good thing to keep in mind here is how often we change our minds over a relatively short period of time. So the example I want to use here for sex tech is dating apps, introduced 10 years ago, let's say Tinder, and how strange and sort of dystopian it felt to be on a dating app. And now, fast forward 10 or so years, in 2021, it's completely normal. In fact, it's strange if you're not on a dating app and you're single. And our attitudes towards technology like this, especially around intimacy, change a lot faster than we consciously realize. So here's my request for you. Suspend your judgments for the next 10 minutes on sex tech. Let me be your sex tech guide, your optimistic sex tech Sherpa, as we dive into the surprising ethical and social implications that may lead to a thrilling future for all of us. Okay, sound good? All right, well, let's take it for a spin. Let's go in deep. I am going to share a less obvious example with you now. I think robots was the obvious play, and then, smartphones for something that we use day to day. But I want you to take a walk with me now and imagine one step or two beyond these sort of common examples. Let's say, for instance, you or someone you knew, you weren't able to touch yourself. So something like a robot was of no real use to you, or smartphones. But what then? Like, what would you do if you couldn't please yourself? If you couldn't use your hands to touch yourself? If you had mobility issues, essentially, you had some sort of pain in your hands, lack of dexterity, a weakness that meant you couldn't enjoy the big O by yourself. You couldn't essentially masturbate. Now, hundreds of millions of people suffer from hand limitations today. And the solution for the longest time has been to go without or to hire a sex worker, which gets expensive and complicated, especially depending on what country you're in. And going without sounds pretty miserable, but has been the reality for many people. And this is where Handy comes in. So I'm showing you a prototype here of Handy's Joystick, which will be released in a couple of months. And it really is one of those innovative examples of sex tech I want to share with you, because it enables, minority populations like the disabled community with hand limitations that may seem not as obvious to people, to enjoy sexual pleasure, and is designed by disabled people. So you can see now the Joystick has emerged and is looking a lot more like a commercial product. Sex tech like this is what I would say is the future, the thrilling future. And this is Handy. Sex tech is also VDOM here. Don't mind the dots over the genitals. But in all seriousness, I think this is a really important example to share with you because, again, it's an example where it's a prosthetic. It's not just a sex toy. It's a prosthetic that's designed to go from flaccid to erect at the touch of a button. But it's really designed for marginalized groups like lesbians, paraplegics, people experiencing erectile dysfunction who are looking for alternatives to medicine or surgery for sexual expression. And previously, these sorts of markets have been forced to use devices that are designed for orgasm alone. They've been forced to use basically sex toys for their identity. And our sexual expression is so much more than just an orgasm and just having sex. Our sexual expression is us walking down the street. It's how we move in the world. So this is the sort of thrilling potential of sex tech that I'm here for. Now, there's also a ton of other examples I'm about to share with you. Sex tech is Slutbot, which is an app to help you become better at sexting. You can practice with a chatbot. In fact, if you just went onto your smartphone now, you could find sex tech like Lover, which would help you become a better lover, Mend to get over a relationship, Ghostbot if you were wanting to ghost someone but didn't want to do the emotional labor, you could use Ghostbot, Dipsy, which is erotic audio, and of course, another obvious one, Teledildonic, so connecting sex toys to apps and allowing you to connect Wi-Fi, Bluetooth all over the world. Sure. Beyond your phone, though, sex tech is also wearables. So sex tech is Onut here, which is a wearable for painful sex. Those rubber rings reduce the depth of penetration, which is a huge issue for a lot of vulva owners experiencing painful sex. It's also heating and cooling pads for your genitals, like private packs. Sex tech is also the Rape-Ax, which is a female condom fitted with barbs, and it's designed to prevent rape. So that condom grips onto the penis and has to be removed in hospital. Sex tech is also Callisto, a platform that's designed to improve the process of reporting sexual harassment on campus and now in the workplace. And sex tech is Yo, a sperm test that effectively turns your smartphone into a microscope to measure the motility of your swimmers. So as you'll see here, sex tech is all around us. And perhaps you're wondering how exactly can all of these wide-ranging things still be sex tech? And let's return to the original, question and consideration. by looking at the word again, sex tech. And let's answer it by looking at the word. Sex, tech, sexuality, technology. It's the compound of two terms. And when we look at sex tech in this way, we see that sex tech encompasses so much more than just the physical act of sex and using a technology. In fact, sex tech, sexuality, that's a big bucket. We have sex education, we have sexual health, we have crime and violence reporting, identity, pleasure. And on the technology side, we have all these sorts of technologies, not just robotics, but including it, AI, XR, mixed realities, haptic technology to replace that sense of touch, also websites and apps. Technology is so many different things. It really is just a tool. But as you'll see, sex tech incorporates this interesting intermingling of these two terms. And we need to think about technology really as a tool. It doesn't have to be sex robots. Technology as a tool, meaning it's just something we use to achieve a goal, right? And that sort of takes away the sting of technology replacing us as intimacy partners on all different dimensions, from emotional, intellectual, spiritual, and physical. Technology is just a tool. And when we think about it like that, well, technology and tools, they've been around for ages. In fact, this might be the oldest sex tech ever. These are stone dildos, tens of thousands of years old, and really proves the point that innovation around sex with technology has been around for thousands of years. And so the question really comes up now is like, well, why haven't we heard about this? How have I not heard about sex tech before? Why am I only hearing about it now? And the reasons for that are complex, but also unsurprising. They're to do with the stigma and shame we have around sex. Now, let's wind back a few decades, because I think this is an important point to chart the stigma around sex and look at how things are changing over the last few decades, because my belief is we're at a crucial and interesting point in society where the conversations around sexuality, expression are actually moving, a bit faster than before, and may meet the pace of technology. And it explains really why we're having this conversation now at South by and not previously. So sexual pleasure as we know it for the longest time, perhaps when you were growing up, has been lurking in the shadows, right? It's hidden discreetly out of the way in pharmacy aisles or behind counters. It's often clinicized to solve issues, and that's how it's presented to us, especially as kids. It's sort of like clinical, and if it's not clinical, it's creepy. So then if we think about how it's presented as something that's taboo and bad, growing up, SEX was something that was lit up in neon on the side of highways. It was like on late night TV. It was on billboards. It was like dark and dirty corners of the internet. And I think it's important, again, to look at how that's changed over the last couple of decades. And we've seen these signals around sex changing, and sexuality. Even the latest Bryony documentary and how she was treated 15 years ago really gives you a sense of how much our attitudes have changed when cultural conversations around women's pleasure and sexual pleasure, they usually appear every few years. And they're usually around a pop culture moment. That could be Sex in the City. It could be 50 Shades of Grey, Grace and Frankie. And it's in these moments that women's sexual pleasure is presented as strange or foreign or funny, and mostly hilarious, even to the women that are experiencing the pleasure themselves. And humor is a great tool for breaking the ice on sex. But you know what else is? Movements. So in the past couple of years, cultural movements around sexual harassment and assault, like Time's Up and Me Too, have really buoyed a conversation around sexuality. Now, it may not be about pleasure, but it's really emboldened us to go further and to be speaking up and speaking out about sexuality. And people are feeling heard. It's like there's this sense of camaraderie. They're not alone. And sexual pleasure and pain are coming out of the shadows. A lot more in the past year, I would say, with celebrities now joining sex toy companies. This sort of last year has signaled a further shift in our openness towards sex and towards discussing all the different parts of sexuality and female pleasure. It's really shifted from being hilarious to actually something that's grounded in wellness. We just saw a couple of weeks ago, Gwyneth Paltrow launched her own Vibrator. So in fact, one of the rare bright spots of 2020 was that lockdown has really put a spotlight on our intimate lives. You know, we've seen this potential in technology as a salve to loneliness and the gateway to emotional connection or intimacy with other humans. It's reflected in the research. So even in the first 4 months of lockdown in America, 54% of American couples had already become more sexually adventurous. This is a study conducted by Love Honey. 89% of couples, 98%, it was meant to be 89, but probably 98 by now, but 89% of couples rely on sexting. Video has become the new norm, especially with dating. Dating apps have opened different features that include creating core texting groups that are facilitating connections across borders and romances, but bigger sort of facilitations of intimacy. And people are buying sex toys along with their toilet paper. You know, over a third of singles and couples made a lockdown-inspired sex toy purchase. We're starting to really see en masse how technology can be this vehicle for intimacy and sex. This is all the Instagram influencers that are now incorporating, sex conversations into their wellness routines. And we see sex products like this pop up alongside beauty products on Instagram. Masturbation now being a big part of mental health conversations. Even governments advocated for being your own safe sex partner. So as more of us discovered our need for intimacy during lockdown, less and less has sex and sexuality less and less is sexuality a shameful topic. Instead, intimacy, how we might achieve it, has become the conversation to have, right? So whether it was you're trying to save your marriage or you're looking for inspiration, Google searches around sexuality skyrocketed during lockdown. The numbers show that we binged on online adult entertainment, we debated the pleasure gap, and the sex tech industry really emerged as one of the biggest industries to take off in the past year. So the conversation has really driven a change here. Sex tech is now big business. It's valued at $122 billion in the next couple of years as a result of these conversations that are happening out in the open. The secrecy and shame around sex that, it was happening when I grew up is slowly being dissolved. We still have a long way to go, but it's catching up to the pace of innovation in technology. Now, the pace of innovation in technology is crazy, but if we consider that we're moving fast with sexuality, I think we can understand that the sex tech industry is really, it's at the beginning. And a lot of people see this sex tech industry or hear me talk about it and think, well, wow, I see the potential now. How do I get to work? We're right at the beginning of this sex tech industry. It's a right playing field for entrepreneurs. We're at that point where back in history, we had cars but no roads, or we had telephones that were invented but there weren't enough people to call. Like, imagine what entrepreneurs felt at that time and what they felt like they could imagine for their future. And I would say to you, whatever you can dream of right now is possible because of how nascent an industry we, and when I say we, I'm including you, because of how nascent an industry we are. Sex has been around forever, but the conversation has really propelled us to look at this industry now, thankfully. So hopefully now robots isn't the first thing that comes to mind when you hear sex tech. It might be something in your own life, It might be how you're using your phone. It might be a conversation you have with your partner. conversation you have with your kids around sex education that sparks a connection for you, sparks that thought that this could be better. Like maybe technology could help us get there. And I think that's important to shed the light on what's missing currently in your own life, because I feel like there's an opportunity for so many of us to become entrepreneurs in this field and see that at the end of the day, the thrilling potential of sex tech isn't actually about the technology. It's about the openness of humans like you and I to have conversations about sexuality and shine a light on taboo, because only then, when we shine those lights in the dark corners, the dark, scary corners, only then will it not become as scary or, ethically fraught, and we won't touch it, or it won't feel as dystopian. If we can recognize that our own needs for intimacy and expression are valid and need to be discovered, well, then that's the point where we will discover the true potential of a $122 billion industry that's been lurking in the shadows. So, what is sex tech? You tell me. And thank you for having me.